Inside the Birds is back. What's going on, everybody? Geoff Mosher and Adam Caplan, and we are in the off season. That's right. So you know our off season schedule now. We are Monday and Thursday twice a week, but we got a lot of great content coming up on Inside the Birds platforms. And also, we've got lots of good information, Adam, as we get closer to free agency and we get closer to the combine. You and I will be at the combine later this month, which stretches into March. And we have a lot of questions that we'll have to answer once we get there. And as we always do, a lot of investigation on our part. And one of the craziest things I've ever seen, and it's not like we didn't know it, but when you put it to paper and look at it, 20 free agents that the Eagles have, right? Isn't that the number 20?
More than I thought. Yeah. In fact, I was given the list by somebody who would know, and I'm like, oh, I didn't know Brett Toth was a free agent. So I had it as 19, and then the only question with him is whether he's restricted or unrestricted, because he has been spent so much time not on the roster on non-football injury,
right,
and PUP, reserve PUP. So we don't know whether he'll qualify to be an unrestricted free agent. But no, there's technically 20. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, if you think about it, it's 53-man roster. Now, you always have more than 53 players because you release some guys, you elevate them from the practice squad. But so if you made it 60, you lose some guys to IR. That's still a third of the roster. And Howie Roseman talked about that this past week. Howie Roseman and Nick Sirianni had a press conference. They answered some questions. They probably didn't answer some of the questions people really wanted them to answer about the field. And Nick was very honest about going for on fourth down. He never questioned any of his decisions to punt. So I don't know how happy or unhappy that made fans, but he was steeped in his convictions with that. The field, you heard Howie say twice that both teams played on it. He did not use any excuse. Wonder, you saw the press conference, right?
Oh, yeah.
Adam?
Yeah.
Did it seem to you that Howie was a little more somber than he usually is? I thought it looked like a guy who still had not gotten over the loss.
I don't know what it's funny you say it, because I'm like, is either he's not over or there's something wrong. It's just very odd. It's not like him not to have energy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw
exactly.
it.
Great way. I mean, he's always a high energy guy, and
weird.
He sat in that press conference like somebody kicked his dog. Like it was bad. You know, he looked like he hadn't gotten over it. And hey, listen, I get it. I understand.
Maybe it is. We don't know that's the case. We don't know what it is. I have no idea why he's upset, to be honest.
True.
Good point. Who knows what it is? Yeah.
Good point. I shouldn't just assume it was the Super Bowl. Maybe something else was going on. But yeah.
That's my point. It could be anything. I'm not sure. You never know with these general managers what happens. Sometimes I know they've had meetings leading up to it, the press conferences, and something happens that changes their mood. Yeah, this has happened over the years. So I wouldn't assume anything at this point. But like you and I saw the same thing. We're like, what? Why is he like so down?
Of that, very somber.
But we don't know.
Right. And Nick seemed normal, Nick. I mean, he gave his answers and he looks like ready to go. I think as an Eagles fan, if you're an Eagles fan, you have to like what he said. No excuses made. He just said losing makes you hungrier to want to win it next year. And obviously they got a lot of work ahead of them. We'll talk about that. A lot of it is making sure the 53-man roster is good enough to compete. It may not be as good as it was this past year. It may never be as good as it was in 2022, but that doesn't mean you can't win the Super Bowl in that instance. We've talked about that before. So they have a lot of work to do. You heard them talk about Jalen Hurts. Not surprisingly, there was no bashfulness about talking about signing him to a contract extension and sort of not being risk averse because of what happened with Carson Wentz. That's not how general managers think. We know that. And so we'll see when that deal gets done. And go ahead.
No, I was just saying, if it does, there's a saying in the National Football League: it takes two to tango. Like the Eagles want this done as soon as they can get it done. Hurts and his agent Nicole Lynn have to make a decision on what's their timeline if they want to get it done, and B, what do they want in a contract. So, from an Eagles standpoint, there's no question they're getting this done or they want to get it done. But from the player standpoint, because think of it this way: if I'm Nicole Lynn, I'm not doing anything until I see it. I want to know if Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow get their deals done, because that'll be the ceiling. So let's say they get 52 to 55 million per season. Okay, if I'm Hurts, I'm probably not going to take less than 48 million. Maybe I want 50 million.
Right.
Okay? The floor, the Kyler Murray deal. Now Murray had, remember he was a first pick overall. So and these other guys were first round picks, so they have fifth year option. But if I'm Hurts, I want to know what those deals are. There's no way in hell if I'm doing that deal that I want to know what the landscape is. I don't want to be the first person in. There's no way I would do that.
Yeah, no, definitely not. And then it becomes, and we see this every year. It sort of becomes a race to who signs first, and then I want to get more than that
Yeah,
person. And at the end of the
yeah,
day, it's kind of funny because it'll all be sort of around the same. I mean, somebody's going to make a little bit more than the next person. That's just how it goes. But
sure, sure.
The Eagles with quarterbacks, Adam, they've never I mean, listen, they always try to get it now because it becomes team friendly when you can do it in year 3 as opposed to year 4. But they don't necessarily screw around either with quarterbacks and try to nickel and dime, at least not in the past. They've been, whether it was Donovan, whether it was Vic, when they decided to make him the starter. Kevin Kolb, remember when he was a starter, they hooked him up to make it
1 year.
fair for that 1 year. Carson Wentz, obviously they did. So I think the Carson Wentz one was done in June, if I'm not
Year 4,
mistaken.
yeah. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
headed into year 4.
Right.
It was exactly. In fact, that was just so shocking when they drafted Hurts 10 months later.
Right.
Actually, it might have been 11 months, but nevertheless, we were just so shocked. They extend Wentz's contract, 32.5 million. Now, it was actually the funny thing about that one, though they got zapped with a major salary cap hit, biggest in dead money, biggest dead money hit in NFL history. But of course, they didn't know they'd be moving him 2 years later. Actually, less than 2 years later. It's just ridiculous.
Crazy.
Who knew? I mean, it's just really a strange thing. But you're right. It's starting with Joe Banner. When they would do it after 2 years, and then the so-called Joe Banner rule, quote unquote, of because NFLPA got sick and tired of the Eagles doing deals after 2 years. They made the 2010 agreement, I think it was the collective bargain agreement. They went from 2 years to 3 years, or maybe it was the one before that. Who knows? I can't remember now, but I know that definitely came into pass. They went from 2 years to 3 years. Any drafted player now. If you're an undrafted guy, you could do it you could have your contract extend anytime you want. There's no limit. You don't have to wait any time at all. In
Right.
fact, you can get it extended after 1 year. But even the last pick in the draft, Brock Purdy could not get his contract extended after 3 years.
Right. Now, if you're Jalen Hurts, if you play the waiting game and wait for the other two to sign first, A, you have to wait, and B, I would imagine that the mentality is, and this is just a guess, we don't know Jalen Hurts, we have no idea, but if he's sort of looking to get market value at least, then you can, I think you can be okay with making less than Burrow because you've both been to a Super Bowl, you both lost to a Super Bowl, but you got to make more than Herbert. I mean, people may say
No, but what if
Herbert's the
they're the
better
same?
quarterback, but you've advanced your team much further than Justin Herbert has.
Sure.
So
No,
I think that,
it's
you know,
they're sort of subjective arguments, but fair, because who's the better quarterback? Okay, Herbert, but who just says you just said again? Who went further? So it's there are arguments on both sides, and this would be Nicole Lynn has not done a quarterback contract yet, so this is a pretty big deal for her. Whenever it gets done, whether it's in 2 months, 6 months, a year, we have to see. This is uncharted water for them because they just from Hertz's side, it's not like he came out of nowhere. They did make the playoffs with him last year, and then he made the big jump this year. So it's fascinating because they have 20 free agents, and Hertz is not one of them. He's under contract. But we know the way it works with this franchise. They never let these guys. They just don't. A quarterback, you never want this guy to have to think about this. You don't want him to have to go to training camp thinking about this. So the Eagles, they've got a lot of work to do, and you could tell Roseman was pretty on it. He's like, hey, they know what the landscape is. Forget the exact language he talked about. You could clearly see if you watch the video, his body language is they're going to try to get this done.
Yeah, I would think so. That's what I got out of it. And you make up a good point. Nicole Lynn, his agent, represents a lot of high-profile players, but I don't think she represents any other quarterbacks. So that's almost like a different animal when you're dealing with negotiations, because it's like, this is the cream of the crop. So
Yeah,
we'll see how that goes for them. But yeah, certainly got the picture or the feeling that Howie Roseman knows that this, and to finish it off here on the conversation, I, Howie can do his job with the other free agents without paying Hurts first because I'm sure he has an idea in his head about what he's going to have to pay Hurts comparatively. But I think it would be almost to their benefit to have the Hurts contract done first and then be able to kind of
Hmm.
go from there. But
Of course, but
that's
good
not
luck.
necessary. It's not 100%
No,
necessary.
this is quarterback contracts. They're just hard. They're just hard to do
Mm-hmm.
because of by the way, this is the first year of the massive cap increase. So
Right.
it's just not it. I'll be interested to see how now. I'm sure they've talked. They have to have talked before. It's you can't negotiate the contract until the regular season's over.
Mm-hmm.
But typically, the way these things work is they start the ball rolling in the fall. We'll just have casual conversations, and then at some point, they start like, for instance, they can meet at the combine. They can start actually having real talks, not informal, like real talks. Okay, they could see how serious the Eagles are. The Eagles could see how serious they are, and is there a timeline for this? Typically, it's training camp. They'll never say that publicly, but I know the way these things work. You don't want the quarterback having to go to training camp, have to answer these questions. You'd rather not have that. And I remember when Josh Allen's deal got done, it got done 2 years ago, like the first week of training camp, and they really didn't want him thinking about it. I know they put the contract got signed like, let's say, it was like August 7th, but they formally agreed to like a couple days before that. They just didn't want him dealing with it. And that's what you don't want your franchise quarterback. And yeah, again, we have to say it. We were doing our show in 2019, 4 years ago. He was the franchise quarterback. Now they have another one.
Yes, they do. And the way things are going, you never see fall offs. We didn't see with Carson, but feels like this one's going to be around for a little while here.
I do.
Yeah.
I just the thing is his work ethic, his upbringing, his dad being a coach, the connection that he has with his head coach, the assistant coaches. Brian Johnson, again, we noted this a week and a half ago. We're expecting him to be promoted to offense coordinator, and how much he cares and how much it means, and super coachable. They get on his stuff. He likes to be coached hard, which is super important. I'm not saying he's going to be like, Joe Montana here, but what I'm saying is that he has a chance to be here like 10 years. There's no question based on his work ethic and all that.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so Q&A is done for a little while. They're going to take a little break. They went out with a bang. their last Q&A was fantastic.
I got to tell you, I have a usual ritual when I listen to their show, and what did it drop Friday? Was it Friday or Thursday?
Yeah, it came out Friday last week.
So before I did Mike Gill show on Friday, I listened to it. I was just like, okay, I get it. They're two ex-players. We didn't play, so we can't really relate to their emotion, like because we didn't play, so we can't feel it like they do. Folks, the fire that they had, even Q.
Yeah, man, that was Spitfire.
Wow.
Both of them were coming out.
I get it. I get it. They went after Gannon pretty good. No question.
Mm-hmm.
I feel their pain. I look, my friends who are season ticket holders, they're still pissed off. I think, and I don't want to speak for Q&A, but I kind of get where they're at, and I think we kind of said the same thing in our way. The Eagles were clearly the better team on paper coming in that game. We all expect them to win. Look at the half. Look how well they dominated for a half.
I know.
To lose like they did, it's just. I mean, I feel it, man. I get it.
It ain't as bad as the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl. What was that? 28-3.
Don't. When we have Dimitrov on again, don't bring that up.
I know. But it was pretty. I'm
scared too.
Bad because the double digit. Only because the stats are that was the
bigger choke, way bigger choke.
Yeah, it's a way bigger choke, but the bottom line is a 10-point lead. No, that was only the second time that someone's blown a 10-point lead at halftime. That one, the 28-3 being the first. So they're sort of in the same conversation, even though one was a way bigger choke.
Right church, different pew. Yeah,
exactly. All right. So anyway, even though we don't have Q&A, we've got a lot of off-season content and programming that we're getting ready for you. The first is going to be season 2 of the Intel with Greg Cosell, and that's going to be out on Wednesday of this week, episode 1. It'll be a 10-week series. First few weeks will be dedicated to free agency, and then the last few weeks will be dedicated to the draft, and nobody does it better than Greg Cosell. So if you're new to us and weren't around last year for season 1 of the Intel with Greg Cosell, it's easily one of our most visible shows, most watched shows, most show we get feedback on. People love seeing Greg Cosell, so you won't have to wait long. We're going to do cornerbacks. We're going to start off with free agent cornerbacks.
The big one.
Yeah, and Adam and I purposely chose that one because we know James Bradberry is going to be a corner. So, and I think James Bradberry is a fascinating one to start with because he had such a good year and he was an all-pro, but for some reason, wide receivers around the league seem to not respect him very much because a lot of them have been picking on him verbally.
What is going on with this
media?
What is with Ayuk popped off, Julian Love popped off. What is with these
Debo?
Who's that?
Debo Samuel.
Oh, Debo too?
Juju did the most embarrassing. I thought.
Yeah,
Juju,
I saw that one.
I thought that was actually pretty classless, to be honest with you. I don't usually complain about stuff like that, but you just beat them in the Super Bowl. You do the Valentine's Day card if you need somebody to hold you, and you have James. I mean that to me is like rubbing salt in the. That's just not necessary. That feels like like when you take a dog and you stick his nose in the poop. That's not right. You know, like
good for AJ Brown to stick up for his teammates.
Yeah, definitely. I don't mind a little friendly, but that seemed insulting and not necessary. I don't know.
I just what has happened? What did the Eagles? Is it? I know one of the Pittsburgh radio hosts thinks that Sirianni's like I don't know what they're cranking on Sirianni,
a hothead
or whatever they want to call him.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a confident guy. I don't understand. I mean, I think we're pretty unbiased here. I think we fairly evaluated Sirianni. He's a confident guy. What's wrong with him? I don't see that at all.
Yeah, the only thing I've ever said, and I don't remember if I've said it on this pod or just in conversation with you. I felt there are a few times where he gets a little overboard, like, you know, someone hits his player and he wants to, like the time with Salah where he's like cursing at him from across the sideline in the preseason game. I think that's a little sophomoric to me personally, because every team commits a personal foul at some point in the season. And when you're yelling at the other coach, like, I think you're stepping out of bounds a little bit like that. And then with the Cowboys thing too, he got involved. I mean, I'd rather my head coach sort of be fiery, but like, don't get involved where let the players lash that out. You know, you're out there throwing F-bombs or cursing that player. I don't like that personally, but you know, I know people disagree and that's fine. If somebody else feels differently, I don't criticize them. That's just how I feel about it.
The only thing and it's just a small thing, we've kind of laughed at some of his proclamations about how great these players are. Like Quez Watkins could be the best number 2 he's worked with. He's not even a 4 at this point. Honestly, I know Quez had a grade 2 separation of his shoulder, but my goodness, he just had a disappointing year. Let's call it like it is. But okay, but if that's the worst you could say about a head coach, the guy's a damn good coach. I'm blown away by the guy. Quite frankly, I get they have a good roster, but the fact that they made the playoffs in the first year, I don't care what you say about them getting smoked by the Bucs. That's a heck of an achievement with that roster they had last year.
Yeah, no doubt. I have zero qualms with the man's coaching. You can look at the Super Bowl and pick apart a few things, and hopefully he learned from some lessons there, just more on time management and getting things going a little quicker. But
getting the plays in
that, yeah. All right. So there were a lot of transactions. So again, just to repeat, Greg Cosell's first show will be Wednesday on cornerbacks, and we'll talk about not just James Bradberry, but maybe some free agents, because the Eagles may feel if they lose Bradberry that they have to at least sign a veteran on a 1-year deal, because you can't be guaranteed they're going to get a cornerback in the first round of the draft. You can't be guaranteed if they do, he's going to be good enough. And then you can't be guaranteed that Zach McPherson's going to be ready. So we'll talk all about the cornerback.
By the way, yes, sorry. 2 years in a row, you just mentioned Zach McPherson. 2 years in a row, he was the third backup corner. I mean, he was the top outside backup corner. How the hell they got away with that is beyond me. I can't believe. I cannot imagine if they go and, like you just said, if they re-sign Bradberry or sign a veteran corner, are they still going to go with McPherson as the top backup outside corner? Really?
It's a good question, man. At this point, I'm starting to feel like, well, it's hard to judge him because the reality is that Bradbury and Slay all stayed healthy. I don't
I
think either
know.
of them
Dude,
missed
I know.
anything.
I know.
But you do get the feeling that if he's going to have a future, it might be in the slot and not in the outside. And of course, now Maddox has missed a lot of games the last 2
Yeah.
years. So I don't know. This will be an interesting offseason for Zach McPherson to find some kind of role with this team or be pretty much shown the door because there is no role on the team. I imagine there will be, but we'll have to see. He is a good special teams player.
Yeah.
All right. Patreon folks, we've already done, we got you two interview podcasts from the Super Bowl, and then we did a Q&A live stream. So we figure Adam and I were talking about this. We want to do another one soon, probably by when we get back from the combine, maybe, because we want to get all of our information and maybe we can, you know what I was thinking, Adam? I can probably do a couple of videos of the prospects when they're available for the media and maybe throw a few on there for our Patreon followers, like some of the top
Okay.
prospects. So,
Okay. Okay.
all right.
Yeah, and then I'll do my. Don't forget, I do my chat this week every Wednesday. We're gonna do it for 2 weeks, man. I'm even when I'm training camps. We're gonna do. I love doing these. They're only half an hour. That gets you out very quickly. And if you're a Patreon subscriber, you could see the transcripts right up there in the general area on our Discord page. On our Discord, that's where we do it on our Discord channel.
Yep.
And that's it.
All right. So the Eagles were already off and running with their transactions as they always do. They re-signed several players from the practice squad, even maybe from the street to their off-season roster. So these guys will be able to compete when the mini camps start. And then, of course, they'll try to make the 53 this summer. Running back, sort of a surprise. They bring back Kennedy Brooks. I mean, look, you know, they're going to bring back guys that they're familiar with. Kennedy has never been given an opportunity with the Eagles, but here he will get another chance. The same wide receivers I believe they ended the year with on the practice squad, right? Devin Allen, Tyree Cleveland, and Greg Ward. I think those are the same three because they didn't have Auden Tate by the end of the year.
They cut him.
Yeah. So those are the same three. The tight end, Dalton Keene, who is also on the practice squad. The offensive tackles who they were kind of on and off during the practice squad were Fred Johnson, Roderick Johnson, and Jared Williams. You have the guards, Sua Opeta, Tyrese Robinson, and Julian Good-Jones, and of course the center, Cameron Tom. So those are all the offensive guys that were re-signed to. These are futures deals, correct?
Actually, no.
No?
Some were and some weren't. It depends the way the rules work. If you sign them before the Super Bowl, if you're a Super Bowl team, they're reserve future. If you sign them after the Super Bowl, they're just on your offseason roster. But guess what? They're all on the offseason roster now. The Super Bowl's over. Oh, Julian Good-Jones was not on the practice squad that season. I don't think.
I thought he was. Are you sure?
I don't. Yeah, because I'm looking at the way they're. Well, let's put it this way. I'm looking at their last practice squad. He was not on it.
No, I think he was with them for a little bit and then wound up getting released at some point.
Yeah, it may have been before. It may have been he might have been on their off-season roster, but nevertheless, he's back. So
that's, you know what, I know they signed him in mid-January, so they were in the middle of the playoffs when they signed him to a futures deal. That's what it was, Adam. You're right. You're right. I don't think he was, but hasn't he played with either them before or somebody else? His name was familiar to us.
Yeah, he was with another team. You are correct.
He was with a CFL team, but I think even before that, he was with the Eagles at camp.
Yes, he was with. Yeah, I was correct. He was with the Eagles. He was one of the last cut downs. He was actually hurt. He was wave injured in September. A couple years ago, actually, he was with them like 2 or 3 years ago out of Iowa State.
Right.
And he was in CFL, and then the Eagles brought him back this February. So
sure.
He was. Yeah, gosh, wow. I'm looking at.
This is what it was. He had a workout with the Eagles in November. I think that's why I thought it was a little earlier. Okay.
But he was actually with the Eagles with Doug Peterson's coaching staff.
Right.
In 2020.
Right.
So he's a little bit older, and then. Cameron Tom, one of my favorite all time. So Tom Cameron Tom.
Cam Tom.
Yeah, and then back again is Marvin Wilson, Matt Leo again. What is that? Is that 4 years?
Yeah, I thought, how long does the international? Oh, I guess this is no longer an international
No, it's
exemption, right?
not.
He's
Exactly.
just right.
Yeah.
He signed with the team. Okay.
Yeah. Davion Taylor, Teron Jackson, Mario Goodrich. This kid I cannot wait to see. Tristan McCollum, Zion's brother.
Yep.
Zion McCollum's brother. This kid's got all the measurables, height, weight, speed. He's a great. This is the kind of guy you want in your offseason program. Who's look, they badly need developmental outside corner in like the worst way. And they re-signed Sachere, and then not re-signed Noah Tungiai, who was signed by the Cardinals, and Mac McCain is also not to the state. Now, just warning you, John Hightower was signed months later by the Eagles after not signing after the practice squad contract expired. He wound up being cut by the Eagles, then went to the Chargers. But just because a guy doesn't resign out doesn't mean he can't resign in 2 months. There's no rule that says he can't resign.
Right. Okay. So we'll keep an eye out. Obviously, when you went through those defensive names, the one that jumped out at me was Davion Taylor, because we know that, even though he was only on the practice squad all year long, he's a 3rd-round pick from 2020. There was a lot more expected of him, but linebacker is a real pickle for the Eagles right now, with both linebackers ready to, becoming free agents. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I mean, we know they have Nakobe Dean waiting in the wings, but it's not like they have 2 other guys waiting in the wings. So this might be yet again another kind of replenishment of a position for the Eagles if they wind up losing both of those linebackers that they got.
Yeah, well, look, they have two hold on a second. They have 2 starting inside linebackers, and they're both up. Yeah, no doubt.
All right. Anything else that jumped out there? Teron Jackson was kind of obvious, a draft pick. He spent his rookie year with the team, then got released last year on the practice squad. Every time when Teron Jackson played as a rookie, I thought he improved from the beginning to the end. He wound up being odd man out because the Eagles brought in Robert Quinn and they had Brandon Graham, and then of course Sweat and Hassan Reddick. But maybe there'll be an opportunity for him to make the team next year. I mean, you got to think Derek Barnett won't be back. I would think. Do you think he'll be
Well,
back?
he's on a contract, and they
know.
have to eat some dead money. I would agree with you. I was stunned when they re-signed him. I saw no point in it. Now, to me, it was a mistake. I mean, obviously you can't predict he's going to tear his ACL, but just from a performance standpoint, I get it. He's a good run defender, but that's not why you're paying $7 million a year. You're paying him to rush the passer. Teron Jackson, we're told, did not have a good training camp. He wasn't close to making it. He
That's right.
just didn't earn it. Kyron Johnson was the guy who made it over him.
Forgot about Kyron. Yeah.
So Patrick Johnson's still there, who they like. But you're right, though. Teron Jackson showed some as a rookie, and then he did not have a good training camp. And from what we understand, I hate to say it was easy, Paul, but he just didn't earn it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct. All right, as we move on, the Eagles, as we noted last show, the Eagles lost their offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator within 48 hours of losing the Super Bowl. And, well, the losses continue as they are going to have more of their staff that is going to be leaving. We'll get into that in a second. Now, I believe we mentioned this, so it's worth repeating that they are going to do outside interviews. Even though that we mentioned offensive coordinators, all but certain to be Brian Johnson, because we were told, teams were asking and they were told not to bother. Defensive coordinator, we suspected Denard Wilson because we know they like him, will be a candidate. But of course, they're going to have to interview. I think they're going to have to interview from the outside for both coordinator spots by Rooney rule, because you have to interview an outside candidate, even if you're promoting someone who is black. You still have to do outside interviews. So
I think 2, right? Aren't there 2 minorities?
You have to do 2 interviews?
I think I could have sworn it used to be 1. Now I think it's 2.
Okay. 2 from the outside.
Yes, not for you don't have to do this for position, only coordinators or head coach candidates.
Right.
So in our reporting, we mentioned Thursday morning that Sean Desai look for him to have interest, or them to have interest in him. That's going to happen. He's going to interview this week. And then Denard Wilson, I believe, is interviewed. And then this is interesting. We're told by a coaching source that before Rollis will be the Cardinals defense coordinator, we mentioned him potentially going with Gannon.
Yeah.
We're actually told he interviewed for the Eagles defense coordinator job. This coaching source told us he's pretty certain of it.
Mm-hmm.
So now what I'm guessing is he must have done it within like 48 hours after because when did Gannon get the job? Monday, Tuesday.
I think no, Steichen was the first. He got his
Yeah.
like Tuesday. I think Gannon was either Wednesday or Thursday.
Okay. Oh, in fact, that's why Vance Joseph, who we're told is not interviewed yet. Vance Joseph, we're told, had his discussion with Gannon on Thursday, and Joseph kind of was pursuing the Denver job. In fact, we're told he's a finalist for it, which is Rex Ryan, of all people. Rex Ryan and interviewed, and Joseph interviewed for it, we're told already. So he's supposed to be one of the few guys. But the crazy thing is, Vance Joseph was the former head coach. It's
Right.
bizarre to me.
Right.
So, and Rawls is a super smart kid, and I do wonder, will he call the plays for Arizona? I mean, I think he just turned 29 recently. Man,
well, here's what we know. I mean, Jonathan Gannon really liked Nick Rawls, and what's not to? He did a great job. In fact, they were connected even when Jonathan Gannon got here from their Minnesota days.
Yeah, he brought him in. It was his decision. Yeah,
it was his decision. Right. He really liked him. I remember you and I doing shows saying this is a little bit odd because he's so young. What was he? He was only 26 years old. I
think he was 27. Yeah, I think he was 27 technically when he got it.
Got it. Right. And he had just recently turned 27, I'm pretty sure. And we were saying what a young group, and you have a lot of, rookie free agents or undrafted guys. I mean, they didn't have a whole lot of first and second round picks, and the highest pick they had was Nakobe Dean. And how would this linebacker group be able to flourish and respect a guy who is only 27 years old? Well, you know what? He did a great job. I mean, clearly you saw a development, and you can see why Gannon likes him. So, him interviewing with the Eagles just shows that Nick Sirianni probably appreciated the job that he did too. But it seemed like, from what we were hearing, it was what we didn't know is, how is Nick Rawls going to go to Arizona and get like a higher promotion? Because, we didn't really see defensive coordinator for a guy who's still pretty young, but we thought maybe run game coordinator / linebackers.
Yeah, I think you mentioned that. Right. Yeah, I think because I now again understand something. Just if your coordinator is not calling the plays, your job is to gather the game plans from the assistants, because you're not calling this is how it works, whether you're an offense coordinator not calling the plays or defense coordinator. If you're not calling it, you just gather, if you have your own ideas what you should run that week, but you get a bunch of ideas from all the assistants. So if he calls the defense, man, think about this. He was not really, no matter what his title was with the Vikings, I'm told he was basically a quality control coach on defense for the Vikings. It's really what he was. He might have been assistant linebackers, but we were told that that's not really, the coaching was whoever the linebackers coach was. He was really just the guy who would sort of do special projects and stuff. To go from that to a linebacker coach for 2 years, now the defensive coordinator for the Cardinals, holy smokes.
Yeah, no, good. A meteoric rise for the kid. The kid whose brother is a WWE wrestler, or you
or is he?
Yeah,
I don't know. I know he was. I don't know if he was.
By the way, I just tried to talk to some people I know who know Nick Sirianni to kind of get a feel, like, who should we be looking out for? Any other names for defensive coordinator or any other positions? Because now they need a linebackers coach too. A couple of people said, just go look at some coaches that he's coached with before, and go back to like the Chargers where he came from. He was there when John Pagano was defensive coordinator. Pagano also has a linebackers coach pedigree. So I don't know if Nick Sirianni's reached out to him or not. I'm just saying, like, that's a guy who might be able to fill a void here on the staff if Nick Sirianni wants to bring him in, because there's a familiarity there.
He's a good coach. He's a little bit, talking to people who coach with this guy, he's a little bit more aggressive as a play caller than his brother Chuck, his older brother Chuck. He's a good coach. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised he's been out of work. I know he was with
he was with the Broncos.
Fangio with Denver, and then he wasn't retained. But no, that makes sense. Oh, in fact, it's interesting what's happening. So Steichen so far has not taken anyone. We're not saying he's not. But from what we're told by coaching source, he's pretty much going to keep, if not all of them. If he doesn't keep the entire defensive staff, he's keeping a lot of them, because he was with a lot of these guys with the Chargers. So we'll see. We've not heard any. If you heard any offensive coaches, like defense, we kind of gave it away last Thursday, but I've not heard anyone in offense.
No, for Steichen, as far as taking somebody,
any of the
Eagles no, it was kind of strange. In fact, I was talking to a couple of people who basically said what we said. Kind of surprised that from what we're hearing, Patullo's not going anywhere. You would have thought maybe Steichen would have tried to poach him or not, but apparently he's not going in that direction, at least as of not right now.
Yeah,
You
so
never
it's
know what's
money.
going to happen, though. It's hard to get the guys you want at this time because
Yeah,
a lot of guys are usually under contract.
you can
And
block
so
them.
sometimes yeah, it's right. They get blocked or you're trying to work with it. So, who knows who's eventually going to be his offensive coordinator or what he's going to do. I don't want
So
to definitely say Patullo's out because you just never know what's going to happen, but it doesn't,
yeah,
we're not getting that feeling that he's going to take him.
two names. Well, although I was told that Jim Bob Cooter, who did work with Eagles in 21, so Steichen, and I heard he's got a real shot to be the offensive coordinator for the Colts. So that Steichen pretty much cleared it up that he's going to call the plays. The two coaches to keep an eye on are Roy Istvan, the assistant line coach. The only reason why is because he's a Stoutland disciple.
Totally.
I mean, if you're these two coaches, I get it. Stoutland's like a Hall of Fame coach, and people speak very, very well of Istvan. Why wouldn't I mean, unless you don't think the guy could do it on his own, why wouldn't you bring him in? You know,
I don't know. I don't know. I kind of wondered if Alex Tanney would also be a guy that somebody else is looking at, just because we had started hearing over the course of the year that he was really well liked and well thought of within the organization. What is he? He's a quality control coach for offense, right?
he's got, from what we're hearing. Well, he's the assistant quarterbacks coach, offensive assistant,
That's
right?
right.
He's same thing as you're saying. What we're hearing is he's the most likely candidate to move up to take the quarterback job with the Eagles,
Mm-hmm.
with Johnson moving up to be the OC. And then, what do you know about Joe Casper?
Yeah, so there's a guy, the defensive quality control coach for the Eagles. His name is Joe Casper, who, again, not a household name, not a guy that the Eagles fan might know, but another guy like Rallis that's very close again. And I heard they have a great relationship. It would make sense because as a quality control coach, you're doing a lot of projects for the defensive coordinator throughout the year. So you get a lot of information, get a lot of stats, got a lot of data, a lot of trends and things like that. So they work very closely, even though you don't hear these names that much. So Joe Casper is a guy who might go with Jonathan Gannon also out in Arizona
Okay.
if because of the relationship there.
Okay. Then
So
one more
mhm.
note. So the way these coaches' contracts work, non-coordinators, it's usually position coaches get what are called a rollover, 2 years and a rollover. So these coaches have had their 2 years, because there's been speculation about Michael Clay, but Sirianni killed that at the press conference. He said, "Oh, Clay will be back." So I know there were rumors maybe he would go with Miko Ryans or someone, because he was with him with Miko and with the Niners, or maybe he'd go somewhere else where he knew somebody. But Sirianni was asked about it, and he said, "Oh no, Clay's going to be back." He thought he improved, so that kills that speculation. And other than that, I'll tell you what, this Jeremiah Watford, Jim's son, is a terrific coach. Uh, no one, from what as of Monday morning here, we have not heard anyone's put a request to talk to him to be a coordinator or anything like that. But just to recognize him, I've heard he's done a great job.
There you go. Good point. And by the way, the Vance Joseph thing is interesting. I mean, it's certainly a experienced coordinator, been a head coach, but this is a guy whose history is blitzing at like a
He's
40%
heavy.
clip.
Yeah.
We talked about that when the Eagles played the Cardinals earlier this year. So that would sort of be a deviation from what Nick Sirianni is talking. Not that Nick's against blitzing, but when you blitz, if you don't hit home, you leave yourself open for explosive plays, especially in this league where a lot of the quarterbacks who know it's coming can beat it. So it was a little surprised to hear that name come up, but I mean, again, he has experience and he has been a head coach as well. So you could understand sort of just interest there, but that would definitely be a deviation
Oh,
from a Jonathan Gannon style defense.
yeah. He's the what we've heard is the reason why he's not interviewed is because he is in the running to be the coordinator. He ready to interview, we're told, for the coordinator job for Denver, and he wants to see whether he's getting it or not. And if not, definitely we know the Eagles would gather information, have interest in talking to him here in Philly. But that would be it. There could be more names. There's no question. It's like they typically you want this stuff wrapped up before you go to the combine, because you want these coaches to be in the interviews with you, with players. So I'm sure they want to get this done before the interviews start, probably next Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yeah. All right, we're going to get into the free agents. Just kind of give a rundown of what we know and the situations involved with them so far. First, we're going to tell everybody to make sure you check out our friends at phlsportsnation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto. Make sure you check them out at phlsportsnation.com. On Twitter, it's at phlsportsnation. We'll pause real quick for a word from our other great friends at Sky Motor Cars.
Sky Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schulter, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
And if you happen to stop into Sky Motor Cars in Westchester, PA, make sure you tell them Adam and Geoff sent you. You will get a great deal. All right. The big number is 20. As we mentioned it before, 20 free agents combined on offense, defense, and special teams. So let's start on offense, Adam. Obviously, the position of most importance is quarterback for the Eagles. And they've done such a good job over the last 3 or 4 years of having a high-end, cost-efficient backup. And they're going to have to get creative, most likely, to get that again, because Gardner Minshew is a free agent.
Actually, I would disagree, and I'll tell you why. This is the deepest backup quarterback list I've ever seen. There are like 25 good backup quarterbacks. So they'll have leverage. In fact, it's the worst I've ever seen for starters. It's because here's what's going to happen. Lamar Jackson's not going anywhere. He'll either get a deal or tag. Geno Smith's not going anywhere. Deal or tag. And there was one other quarterback. I'll tell you who that is. I will tell you quickly who that is.
Daniel Jones.
Thank you. Yes, Daniel Jones would either get. So when you look at it, this is insane. I'm going to give you the list right now. This is very simple. Here are your backup quarterbacks: Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, Mike White, who I like, Jacoby Brissett, Teddy Bridgewater, Andy Dalton, Taylor Heineke, Josh Dobbs did a nice job. Joe Flacco, former Eagle, Drew Lock, Case Keenum, Mason Rudolph, Gardner Minshew, Chase Daniel, Jarrett Stidham did one monster game. Cooper Rush, Blaine Gabbert, there are a couple others who I'm not going to mention because they're really below the radar.
Okay, that's interesting.
James Winston to be cut.
Right. What do you remember what the Eagles gave Flacco for that 1 year? What his salary was?
Let me look at my.
I thought it was like $4.5 million, maybe. Or no,
I know
maybe
people were
even
screaming. I remember people were, "Oh, how could you give him this money?"
It might not have even been that much.
Well, he did a great job against Cleveland. In fact, I don't know why they felt. Like I said, just to take a look at him. When was he with them? Oh, was it 20?
It was last year. It was 2021. Yeah.
Let me see.
I'm just because of the names you listed there. There are like a Mayfield. That's interesting. I still think that the price for a good backup quarterback is going to be, $4 to $6 million at least.
You're right. You're pretty close on Flacco. It's just under $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
There was just a small bit of upside. $3.5 million fully guaranteed at signing.
And Gardner's a lot younger.
Yeah, but here's the thing. But it's the supply outlives demand for backup quarterbacks.
Fair. That's fair.
And demand outlives supply for starters. It's Jimmy Garoppolo. And there's no one else, and there's just nobody else. They're all going to be capped. So
right.
if you want to back up, in fact, what the Eagles are going to do, you could count on this. They're going to do some, not particularly a quarterback, but and Roseman, you heard what Howie said. He said, "Oh, we'll be great. We're going to get comp picks." He was hinting because what's going to happen is they're going to let a lot of guys walk.
Oh yeah.
And once the compensatory formula is over in May, so these players don't count, you'll see. Not that they're going to resign Linval Joseph, but we'll see if they want to. But a guy like Linval Joseph, they won't count to the compensatory formula if you wait. There's it's usually like the first week of May. So they'll be active in that, probably signing guys in May or later. You watch.
I'm sure they will be. All right, so we'll see on Gardner Minshew. And I guess the question you have to ask yourself is with the Eagles, knowing how much money you're going to have to commit to keeping some guys in-house and extensions, do you even want to have to pay a couple million or more for a backup quarterback, which is still cost efficient compared to what, the 10 to 20 they used to have to pay, right? Or do you want to get a guy like Gardner who's on his rookie deal and makes less than him than $1.5
Well,
million?
guess what? Flacco, remember, dummy years.
Yeah.
Dummy years. So that doesn't really factor in. You just
Spread it all out.
yeah. They could sign a guy. They signed Flacco to the veteran minimum plus, I think, 3 dummy years.
That's a good point. It's a good
So
point.
you don't have to worry about that.
I guess we could just have that conversation about any single player. Just 30 dummy
No,
years.
but at
It's
quarterback
odd.
you can because the leverage clearly with the clubs this year. It's the league. I'll tell you what, if the Eagles are so, I mean, I hate to say they're lucky, but the fact of the matter is they should feel fortunate. Hurts looks like he's going to be a stud because so many teams don't have a quarterback.
Mhm.
The Jets, Derek Carr visited the Jets this past weekend. If they don't get Rodgers or Carr, I don't know what they're doing. They can't win
Drafting
without
another one.
joke. I mean, if you go through the list, Washington, they're going to go with Sam Howell. Really? Okay. Good luck to you.
Yeah.
The Bucks don't have a quarterback. The Saints don't have a quarterback if they don't get Carr. The Panthers don't have a quarterback.
The Raiders don't have a quarterback, and
Raiders
they're
don't
getting
have
rid
a
of
quarterback.
Carr.
Yep. Arizona doesn't know when Kyler Murray will be exactly ready.
Right.
And then you've got a team like we mentioned the Jets. The Colts don't know who the quarterback is. The Texans don't. There're just not enough good ones to go around.
I know. I'm fascinated, by the way, you know what? I'm fascinated by the Justin Fields thing and just watching what Shane Steichen did with Jalen Hurts. Maybe they should seriously consider trying to get Justin Fields if the Bears want to unload him.
They're not like it.
I'm not sure I believe them.
Well, no, that's what I was going to get to. That one I'm not sure I totally believe. Whereas like the Ravens, there's no chance. Like Lamar's their guy.
Yep.
Despite all the internet speculation, they shot that down like really hard.
Mm-hmm.
But the field. Oh, Justin's our starter. But I know their team's doing homework on him, so we'll see if anything pops at the combine. But
Right.
I agree with you because they have a high pick. They didn't draft him. He's super gifted. He's just super raw. You have to have a plan for him. You can't keep like having him be your lead, having him rush the ball 12 to 14 times a game. It's not going to develop him as a passer. At some point, you got to develop him as a passer.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so moving on in offense, you got the running backs, Miles Sanders and Boston Scott. I think Boston Scott has a better chance of being back than Miles, but we'll have to see how you and I are, I think,
no idea,
pretty lockstep on this. I know a lot of people have just given up on the idea of Miles Sanders being back, and they're
I'm not.
He leaves. I'm not either. I think the market is going to be a big dictator in this. Now, if you ask me what's more likely to happen, I think he's going to be gone because I do believe that Barkley, Pollard, and Jacobs aren't going to all be free agents. That's the ideal situation for the Eagles to bring back Miles Sanders, where Miles doesn't have too many takers out there.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
well,
I mean, because you don't find 5 teams all looking for quote unquote big time running backs in free agency. It just doesn't happen.
No, not only that, the thing that we don't know is how like those guys you mentioned are studs, like they're franchise backs. Well, although Pollard he's just super gifted. But Sanders, quite frankly, up to this past season around the league was seen as an underachiever.
Mm-hmm.
Talented guy remember he didn't score a touchdown 2 years ago. Seems impossible. Then he had double digits this season. But what we don't know is how do other teams see Miles Sanders? This is on your point. If he gets to free agency now, you say, oh, he could be the best guy out there. He can get paid, but that should not make him overpaid. It's how you see him.
Right. Which some teams abide by and other teams don't. So that's what makes the market very odd.
Christian Kirk, who the hell, 18 million a year? Are you serious?
Exactly.
By the way, he had a good year.
Yeah, he did. All right. And Boston Scott, I mean, unless the Giants smarten up and just sign him to $1 more than anybody else offers him, I can see him. Listen, we should mention this now because I'm not sure if we talked about it or not.
Okay.
Even though Trey Sermon did not play other than that one game and those 2 carries, right? We both know we're very solid on this, that the coaches really like him. So I know that people are like, well, why didn't they play him? They had their 3, and it's hard to get a guy bam right in there, but they like, specifically, we were told that he's been a really good practice player. He's come here with a good attitude. He's worked hard. He's tried hard. Whatever happened in San Francisco happened in San Francisco. Came here with a blank slate. So, we don't know what's going to happen with Miles Sanders or free agency, but going into the offseason program, I feel like that's a guy that people should be optimistic about maybe getting his shot next year because of
Not
how
as a
we know
starter,
the team
though, just
feels
to be
about
clear.
it. Oh,
Not
yeah,
as-
no. Just
We
to
need
actually
clarify
play.
that.
Yeah, to play.
Yeah. The thing that he has to do a better job, we're told, is he's got to run with more power. He can't be a finesse back. That was sort of what we were told. We actually reported this a year ago, or a year and a half ago, that he came in kind of with this belief that he thought he was the starter coming into training camp in 2021. And Kyle Shanahan, I don't say he lit him up, but he clearly found out that he was benched. He was basically thrown down on the depth chart. He didn't make it. And he got humbled. You mentioned, he only played that one game too. I think it was like 2 for 27. Looked good. It was that rain game against Jacksonville. Never got another carry.
Right.
But as you said, he did well in practice, and they liked him. We put this on our show in the regular season. They wanted. Remember, we were kind of looking at, okay, who are they going to cut to make room for whoever's coming off IR. We said it. We're hearing it's not going to be Sermon. I know people say, how could that be? And we kind of agreed with you, but what we had heard was he did well enough that the coaches really want to take a look at him. In fact, Sirianni mentioned something about Sermon. He mentioned it one time in the offseason that they want to take a look at him. So we'll see. And Gainwell's there, and they only have 2 running backs from last season under contract. Kennedy Brooks will be the third guy, but he's the guy who was not with the team. He was on the practice squad. So
Right.
that would be that. And we'll have more information on Sanders and Scott at the combine. But Sanders, what we're trying to find out, and I know you have a great note on Seumalo, which we'll get to in a minute. But I'd love to know how other teams see Sanders, because that'll determine leverage for him and leverage for the Eagles.
That will be one of our combine missions to figure that out, which we will get that information for everybody. All right, so let's move on. So at wide receiver, the only free agent is Zach Pascal. This will be interesting because he's obviously not a guy who gives you super amount of production, but he's a culture guy, right? I mean, he came in here, they needed a veteran in that room. He provided it. Very reliable, good blocker. I sort of feel like his role is underrated. When he's on the field, especially in their 11 personnel on running plays, he does an excellent job of blocking, crackback, downfield blocking. But Adam, you just had 2 coaches now leave the Eagles, and they have to reestablish culture where they are. One guy in Arizona, one guy in Indianapolis, where he came from, and they love to bring in these just like Nick Sirianni loved bringing him here. Right, you love these culture guys, so there might be a little bit of a market because now you have a couple of guys who are familiar with him.
Great point, man. I had not even thought about that. He's a perfect guy to bring in. Heck, you and I saw no TAs. We're like, wow, okay. You could just see he has this presence about him. No, that's a good one. And then, so that's the only free agent receiver they have now. At tackle, Dillard, of course, can't see a scenario he would come back because he's going to want to be a starter. He did get some snaps at guard. The Brett Toth is either going to be restricted or unrestricted. It doesn't really count. He's never contributed. And then the 2 big ones are Kelsey, whether he's going to retire or not. And then, what do you know about Isaac Seumalo?
All right, so I spoke to another team this over the week. Because remember, we reported we were at the Super Bowl, and we had heard that a team had Seumalo ranked pretty high, right, as their top guard going into free agency. And I spoke to another team this past week that considers Seumalo their top guard / center in free agency. And we can't forget the fact that the Eagles at one point, and probably the rest of the league too, projected Seumalo at center. So if for whatever reason there's a team that needs a starting center and feels that he would be better than what they've got, this just makes it even, again, more hard for the Eagles to bring him back if they want to, because he's valuable to teams at more than one position. So center, guard, whatever it is, and let's say somebody wants him to be the center. Unless you have in front of me, I don't know who the other centers are in free agency. I don't know.
No, I'm not. Well, yeah, I'm not done my file yet, but yeah, his positional versatility helps. I'll tell you, he's been so cost effective for the Eagles. he got a very team friendly extension. His last one,
Right.
it was only 5.626 million per season, and he's been a good story development after a very slow start. They were not really sure at one point after 17, but he had that great 2018 offseason, got his confidence, and then he took off after there. He's just had a lot of injuries. So as you mentioned, now Isaac, at least on a couple boards here, free agent boards, is right up there. So that could price him out for the Eagles. Brett Kern, of course, who was disappointment. He's signed a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Then we get to defense.
But by the way, with Sam Alu, I just want to make it clear. I know there was some social media buzz going around a couple weeks ago that I reported that he was a long shot to come back to the Eagles, as if I had been given that information. And I just want to clarify, I never reported that he was a long shot. I think we were just talking for the reasons we just discussed a minute ago. I speculated that he'd be a long shot because we knew he would be a very top end interior offensive lineman on the market. And whenever you have that, teams are willing to spend. And, you know, we know the Eagles were probably going to prioritize certain positions, give Jalen Hurts an extension, most likely. So that was not me reporting anything as if I was told that. It was just
an idea.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just an idea.
I thought I said that at the time, but that's okay.
I totally got it. You were just saying I can't see him coming back because of what you just mentioned. In fact, Roseman said, it's impossible. He said it's impossible to keep all your players. And then of course, the only time he really he didn't talk a lot, but when he gave more insight was when he talked about how he knows they're going to get compensatory picks because they're going to walk away from some players, and some of those players are not going to be like a veteran minimum. Guys are going to get paid, and we'll get into that.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's talk about defense now. I'm reading the linemen who are free agents, and this starting four, right? This could be, especially if this were like 4 or 5 years ago, this could be like a Super Bowl defensive front, right? With Fletcher Cox, Javon Hargrave, Linval Joseph, and Ndamukong Suh.
Oh my God, you're right.
I mean, 2 of those guys are role players now, but like they were pretty good starters just a few years ago. That sounds like an amazing front four.
Three of 4 of them won a Super Bowl. Yeah, no. Joseph with the Giants, Suh. Did he win? Yeah, 2. Did he win? He got Rams and Bucks, right?
Suh, did he win with the Rams? I thought it was just the Bucks. Who did the Bucks play when they won the Super? Didn't the Bucks play the Bucks played the what? Who they beat to win the Super Bowl?
The Bucks beat the Chiefs, the Chefs in 2020.
Oh, right. Okay. So
no, he didn't get it with the Rams. No, he did not. He played in it.
So. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks like he played in it. No, he was with the Rams in 19. Just 19. No, so he got in it with the Bucks and won it.
Right.
But that's amazing, as you just said very well, that you got 3 out of the 4 D tackles or free agents have won Super Bowls. Wow, when does that ever happen?
Yeah. And then you add the overhang guys, Graham and Quinn, who, you know, Graham was a Pro Bowler this year. Quinn was like a 4-time All-Pro. I mean, this is one hell of a front six to all be free agents.
So all right. So if they walk away from all 4, which I don't see happening, the Joseph and Suh doesn't matter because they could sign them in August if they're still available. They don't really that doesn't matter to them.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously Cox and Hargrave, and we've been saying for months now we only see 1 coming back, not 2. Do you see any scenario where both would come back?
I don't, because I think Javon Hargrave's going to get a really big deal, and you know, it's hard to understand the dynamics of what went on. We know Cox came back because he wanted to stay in Philly. But the Eagles didn't necessarily capitalize on that. They still paid him like for 1 year, like a top tier defensive tackle, like $14 million, right? It's not like
it was crazy.
Usually if some guy says, I love it here, I'll stay, you get a discount. The Eagles didn't get a discount. So
14.
Yeah, that's a lot. So are they really going to spend all that money to bring both of those guys back? I don't see it, Adam.
We'll find out more.
I think Fletcher's, listen, again, speculating, this might have been Fletcher's swan song with the Eagles. I think this is it for him.
Well,
And maybe even both.
well, here's one thing: Jordan Davis has to start. I mean, he has to. It's his
Yep.
second year. We understood the weight issue, and then he lost some weight, and he had the high ankle sprain. No more excuses. He's got to have a great offseason. He's got to start. I don't get the feeling they see Williams as start. Mel Williams as start. He's a really good 3.
Mm-hmm.
Now, could he change the narrative, have a great offseason? Sure, but I don't know right now if they would look at him as a potential starter. Things has always changed, but right now that's kind of where he's looked at. So they're going to have to add somebody. If both walk, if Cox and Hargrave walk, they're going to have to make a fairly significant addition. Now, it could be in the draft. We don't know yet. Our draft coverage starts about the third week of March. We're talking heavy draft coverage. It's like crazy draft stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get a little bit of idea at the combine who the top tackles are, because no matter what you see out there, teams feel differently than what's the so-called draft experts think. It's always different. So we'll find out. And then you talked about Brandon Graham.
Well, real quick. I just want to add, this feels like we have to start having these conversations more now. This feels like interior. Whenever you see a position that you feel like you can't fix it all overnight, that's where Howie seems to get most creative. And it feels like a position where maybe he looks for somebody just like Chauncey, right? Someone who's cost efficient, 3 years into a 4-year deal. Maybe hasn't had the best career, but is still a pretty good player and is on the, it's not working out with whoever. And he tries to, almost like he did. Everybody wants to say Chauncey, but he did this with Tim Jernigan first, right? That was one of the big, and that was just for a pick swap.
Okay.
With Baltimore. So it may not be a 3-down guy. Maybe he gets creative. He drafts a defensive tackle who's known for a pass rush, but he trades for a veteran who's got a year left who can give you a little bit of run stopping alongside Jordan Davis. He's going to have to piecemeal mix and match, I think, if he doesn't bring back Javon Hargrave.
Yeah, I would add to that. The one, and I've thought about, it's funny you mentioned the opportunity thing with Roseman. I don't know if there's a better general manager at finding opportunity to make to take a disgruntled player, or a player, as you said, is in the final year of his deal, is not getting an extension. He's just phenomenal at it. The CJ Gardner-Johnson deal, we liked it when it happened. We had Cosell, and Greg said how great of a slot corner he was last year in 21. I mean, Greg's a big fan of his, but I had no idea he was a ball hawk like this. What a trade! What, they give him a 5th for him?
For who?
Gardner-Johnson.
I think it was a 4 and a 6.
Was it?
And then they got him and a 6, right? They got a pick with him. So
whatever it was talk about a robbery. Oh my God.
Yeah.
What a trade. I mean,
no doubt about it.
And by the way, he is their number one, he's their number one priority. He's not going anywhere.
Number one priority, not going anywhere.
Been an incredible. I mean, to learn this defense as he did, and the knock on him is he was driving his teammates crazy with the Saints. That has not happened here. We know he came in with a lot of energy, and he's kind of harnessed it pretty well. And quite frankly, I mean, when you look at their 20 players, other than Bradbury, we'll get to him in a minute. Other than Bradbury, Kelsey's situation will take care of itself. Obviously, they want him back. Seumalo's kind of tough because you can't pay everybody, and they've got. If Kelsey comes back, we might as well touch on this real quickly here. Then Jurgens, you would think, would be the right guard, so that they'd also could eliminate Isaac from coming back.
Yep.
And then getting back to defense, both starting inside backers. Edwards and White are up. Dean, here's what we're told. We're told that Dean backs up Kaiser. He's more of a he backs up his side. So TJ Edwards here, they'd like to have him back. This is a guy. Here's one for you. You know how you said, I thought it was a really good point about how the two coordinators are now head coaches. They could take some players. Well, you would think Gannon would have some interest in it.
You would definitely think that. Absolutely. That I meant to say that. Yeah. I mean, both teams might, because I don't know that TJ, well, they paid Darius Shackleonard a lot of money. So I don't know if they can afford to have 2 linebackers on that Colts defense. Who's his coordinator going to be? Has he done that yet?
Gus, as I said earlier, I think it's good.
Gus.
I think it's going to be Gus. I think
right.
Gus Bus is going to stay. Right, as of right now, I think the Gus. But if you look at the Cardinals, right now, we don't know. Our assumption is that they're going to run a 34 front, which is what they've been running for years. Well, Zayvon Collins is one of them. Now, Isaiah Simmons.
Yeah.
Right now, here's the thing: where are you lining them up? Because if you're lining up an inside linebacker, that would eliminate TJ Edwards. If you're not, if you're going to line up as a safety or a hybrid player, maybe not quite, because Edwards is a 34 inside linebacker. Period. That's all. He can only play as an inside back, right, an offensive linebacker.
Right.
So that's something to keep an eye on. Yeah, we probably need to look at that more as we'll find out when Indy next week.
I would not be shocked at all if they turned Simmons into an overhang player. I mean, at 6'4", 240, he can play that.
I guess I have to. I think Greg said he played more inside linebacker than any of the positions because he played.
Yeah, but that might have been a mistake.
Oh, I know. Oh, look, this is the same team. It's not. It was a previous coaching staff that stupidly lined up Reddick as an inside linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
Dumb.
Yep.
So yeah, I guess you never put it past that organization, but and then the only corners up is Bradbury, and he's another guy. He's fascinating because the Giants cut him. They didn't think he could play a lot of man coverage. We'll talk to Cosell about him for Wednesday's show. And obviously, he had a very good year. Was he second team All Pro?
He was. I think he was first team All Pro.
Okay.
Yeah. No, you might be right. I think now that I think about it, the first teams were like the kid from Green Bay and Sauce.
Okay.
I think Sauce made first team All Pro as a rookie.
He had to.
And then Surtain made it too. That's
okay.
who made it. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, he must have been second team All Pro.
So Bradbury's a guy they like to have back, but we have to see how cost effective it is. And again, they don't have anyone who can replace him. That could be, as you said earlier in the show, it could be someone in free agency, which is what we'll talk to Greg about. Could come in the draft. And then at safety, it's absent Gardner Johnson. Gardner Johnson's not going anywhere. They'll tag him if they don't think they can get a deal done. And Marcus Epps, I just get the sense, Reed Blankenship, they love him in that third safety role. Spot starter if you need him. He did a great job in that role. I don't know if they see him as a full-time starter.
Reed Blankenship, yeah, I would agree with you on that. And then again, that's another guy that I think you have to worry about. All right, so maybe more with the Colts because they had some aging safeties last year. Right? They had McLeod and they had Justin something, if I remember.
The Colts.
I can't remember his name. Julian Blackman, right? No,
who's good. No, Blackman has had injuries, but he's a good player.
Yeah, but Rodney is probably going to be.
Yeah. In fact, I don't see them because Nick Cross was a draftee. Kid Roddy Thomas was a seventh round play. They're actually pretty good at safety. I don't see it.
Okay. Well, someone's got to replace Rodney. Would that be Nick?
No. But they have them. They're great there. They have Julian Blackman, Nick Cross, and Roddy Thompson. They're fine there.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
And Arizona's they're paying Buda Baker a ton, and I don't see it either.
Right.
Because they got Jalen Thompson extended last year, so it would surprise me if either team got it.
Okay, that's true. But I'm sure some other teams in free agency will try to make a bid. He had a really good year. He's a hard hitter.
Super Bowl team.
Yeah.
You know the way this works. He's good. He's been a great story ups, no question, but he's not a high-end safety.
Right.
These guys get attention. If you start on a Super Bowl team, you're going to get attention free agency. That's just the way it works.
Definitely. By the way, the Bears are another team you're going to have to – well, actually, two teams you're going to have to look for poaching Eagles. Bears because of Ian Cunningham, Steelers because of Andy Weidel. Right? Andy Weidel.
Well, here's the thing. Brisker's starting at one spot. Now, I don't know. Eddie Jackson's his contract is hideous. It's just the cap number is ridiculously high.
Oh, I didn't just mean safety, though. I mean, listen, the Steelers need offensive line.
You mean just
help.
overall
Sayamalu,
player? Oh, sorry. Oh, you mean players?
Andre Dillard. Yeah.
Yeah. I could see potential. Tevin Jenkins moved to guard and did a good job. I don't know what they're going to do with Cody Whitehair. Who's the other team?
The I said Bears and Steelers because of
Andy Weidel
and Cunningham. Yeah.
I would say yes. Safety would make sense because Terrell Edmonds did not get an extension. He's up.
Marcus Epps just has Marcus Epps. I could see him in a Steelers uniform just because I don't know how many safeties they need at him, but because they have Mika, but he plays like a Steeler. I mean, he's going to hit you and take your head off. Yeah.
And he was part of that. He was part of that. He was with the Eagles and they claimed him 4 years ago. Wow. From Minnesota. Yeah. No, it's good stuff. No, it's we'll know more. We just wanted to go over our early thoughts because we're just about 3 weeks away, which is actually an eternity in NFL years for free agency. Because there's just teams generally when they head to the combine, they have an idea who they want to keep. But then when they talk to the agent, if the agent's, look, we've given this example with Jordan Hicks. The Eagles actually wanted him back. He wanted $10 million a year. They never even made him an offer. It was never even a thought.
Right.
They're not paying $10 million.
Right.
And they walked away. So
yeah. No, who was the other linebacker? I remember that they I don't even think they made an offer because he was Camus, right? Remember we found out that Camus was just moving on. He was going to get a better offer somewhere. And then
was it Houston or Miami? Was it Miami?
It was Miami. Yeah, I think it was Miami. Okay. Yeah. But
yeah, so it just depends on what these guys want. The ones to keep an eye on are the big ones are Miles Sanders. Kelsey will take care of itself. That doesn't even count. It's like, does he want to come back or not? I'll take him back if he wants to come back. It's Sanders. It's Seumalo. And it's Bradbury, CJ Gardner, Justin Epps. So 5 players, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. And obviously Hargrave and Cox will be very, very interesting to see.
I would say Hargrave would be 6, but man, I'm not saying he won't come back. My gut feeling is he won't be, but I don't have any. It's just a gut feeling.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
The money is, he just turned 30, by the way, about 2 weeks ago. Got to be careful how much you pay these 30-year-old players, man. And he's not a good run defender. That does matter.
Mm-hmm.
It does matter. Good pass rusher, but and the one thing I would say though, if they walk away from Hargrave and Cox, particularly Hargrave, Jordan Davis is not a pass rusher yet. They like having at least one guy could rush the passer. So if they don't bring Hargrave back, maybe it comes in the draft. Maybe there's, as you said, maybe there's a better price free agent there.
Yeah, or maybe maybe they might consider going back to a NASCAR style if they wind up having more defensive ends than tackles, where you get, if Brandon Graham comes back, he can play the inside. You have Reddick and Sweat on the outside, and then you'll probably draft at the end. You just have some movable pieces there, so they can figure it. They don't have to have it, but I'm sure they would like to just be bolstered up on the inside anyway, because that's really where they build from the inside out.
And their number one need is cornerback. They have to get a development. They need a young corner in the worst way. They've been living dangerously for 2 years. I don't know how they did it. They got lucky.
Did you say 2 years?
No. But again, with 2 older because they had Steven Nelson, they got away with that, not having a third outside corner, and they did it again. I don't count Zach McPherson; he wasn't ready. So, but the thing is, and I know what you're looking to. When's the last time they drafted that guy?
Yeah, I don't know. I was going to say you mispronounced decades wrong.
Sorry,
you meant 2 decades that they've been living.
Jalen Mills, was for a bit, but then Belichick decided to offer him the moon. Boy, Belichick paying 2 tight ends $25 million.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. We'll be back Thursday. In between, again, Wednesday will be the first intel of Greg Cosell of the season 2. Look for that on the platform, and we'll have a lot more coming down the road. That's going to do it for this edition of Inside the Birds, the leading podcast in Eagles Intel. Big thanks, as always, to our listeners. You guys are the best. We couldn't do it without you. And as always, we thank you for flying with us inside the birds.